We all have our demons.
Not enough pain.
What's up, YouTube? It's Kaelrian, aka Chugmug, aka Saladolin, which is the character you see in front of you, so now you know why I do that. Aka Video Babo XE, aka Video Babo, aka Bobby D. How's it going, everyone? I'm here today to talk about something that has been pretty interesting to me over the course of Legion and what we're looking at in the future with Battle for Azeroth, and that is the state of healing gameplay. It's fucking weird, not gonna lie. Just before the midpoint of Warlords of Draenor, I basically spent my entire WoW career on this very character, my priest, sort of swapping between Shadow and some form of healing every expansion. I healed for most of Vanilla, sometimes as a Shadow spec to apply Shadow vulnerability for Warlocks, sometimes as Discipline, sometimes even as Holy. So I've done a lot of healing. I spent what little raiding I did in Burning Crusade as Shadow, so it doesn't really count for this. I spent tons of hours in Wrath of the Lich King healing on this character. Tons of hours in Cataclysm doing the same. Mist of Pandaria, I kind of split time. I was Shadow for most of it, but I had a brief stint in Discipline during Throne of Thunder. And then I spent Warlords healing up until I switched to my Monk to both heal and tank, so my group had that covered. So, Legion's been kind of weird for this, more so than any other expansion, and I think it's worth kind of calling that out and then talking about why. So healing has been balanced from the beginning of Legion in such a way that our healing is far smaller in terms of percentage of health received than it ever has been before. We heal for less health per heal, and it takes more conscious casting effort to restore a player to full health than it ever has before. I think this is actually kind of a good thing. It's been really a good manifestation and continuation of Blizzard's attempts at giving us a triage healing model, where it takes really a lot of active thought and management of your healing abilities to keep everybody topped off where you want them. So I think that's good. However, there's some weirdness that abounds in the new system. We can't go this video without talking about the tank situation. At this point in Legion, tanks are largely self-sufficient. Not always, and not every spec, not every class, but by and large, they're pretty goddamn invincible on their own if they play well. I main a Vengeance Demon Hunter, and I very rarely need outside healing. A majority of the healing I receive during any raid fight comes from me. And, like, that's cool, but that's also really weird. And the other thing it means for healers is that DPS are often stuck taking more damage than they ever have before. A lot of Blizzard's encounter design in Legion has basically been us just getting shit tons of raid AoE damage that requires everybody to just quickly compensate. And that in and of itself is not a problem, but it does force us to think a little bit about why. So Blizzard actually had an interview with Automatic Jack recently that was posted on Wowhead. I highly recommend everyone go check it out because it's well worth a watch. And there's also a transcript if you just want to read it. But basically, Blizzard has kind of purposely designed healing to be more triage focused and about, pouring, very small glasses of water into a pool or ocean of health. This is fully design intention. This isn't an accident. This isn't something that just happened. This is purposely designed that way. And further, it's compounded by the way that our artifacts are designed to give us more health with every trait that we put into them. That was not a design decision made just casually. It was made specifically to make it so that healers that used HOTS or smaller heal over time effects or just smaller heals in general could reclaim some of their efficiency by having a larger health pool against which a larger amount of damage may not be as hurtful effectively. So that's pretty interesting, and it sets up sort of the stage on which we're going to talk about the rest of the video. So We now have the largest health pools we've ever had during WoW. Healers now heal the smallest relative percentage of that health that they've ever healed. Healing cooldowns are reduced in total effectiveness. Healing abilities are reduced in total effectiveness. And mana now has no means by which regeneration can be improved outside of talents. And there's no gear mechanism by which to increase the size of your mana pool or the amount of regen you get. So the whole situation is really, really set up to make every healing choice count. Now, as you get spell power, you're going to continue to gain damage, or healing, rather, in this case. So used to playing DPS now. So when you gain that spell power, you do gain effective healing. You also gain the same artifact power that everyone else gets that increases your healing in your case. So there's an interesting mechanism at work there, but the problem with a lot of the raid mechanics that have been designed to compensate for this system is that they're often designed to punish poor gameplay with a situation that can't be recovered from. The biggest example that everyone will use in this is Armageddon on Kill Jaden, and it's definitely applicable. Basically, if someone fucks up Armageddon, especially on Heroic or Mythic, that's probably going to be a wipe for your group. The dot that it puts on everybody for an unanswered Armageddon just means that you're in a failure state. Short of really amazingly overgeared healers, you're never going to recover from that. You're just going to delay the rate at which you slide down the slope to your inevitable death, which kind of sucks. The other thing is that poor mobile gameplay tends to be the incentive for a lot of designs. Blizzard likes to keep us moving. Blizzard likes to keep us moving around and to keep our healing targets moving around as well. But there's a lot to juggle there. And again, the consequence tends to be just immediate death. If somebody doesn't manage a movement mechanic properly, if somebody fails a mobility check, they just die. Good luck recovering, good luck fixing it. And you might be tempted, depending on your raid leader, to just keep trying anyways. Like, I've been in groups where, I've been in my raid group, where our raid leader will often keep telling people to try anyways, regardless of how obvious it is to everyone else that the fight's done. And continuing is pointless. And that sounds kind of fucked up and sad, but it's really the way encounter design is supposed to work. If you fail at something and you know you're gonna wipe, dust yourself off, try again, and sing the song that uses those lyrics. In some ways, though, I kind of like this gameplay design a little bit, in that the raid damage that your DPS are supposed to be taking, and the raid damage that everyone's supposed to be taking, is designed to be more predictable. If your raid plays really, really well, and plays the way they're supposed to for mechanics like Armageddon and such, then the damage that they're going to receive is actually really well planned for. You know when it's coming. You can have raid timers set up to tell you exactly when it's going to hit. You can have HOTS pre-queued. You can have any on-use effects or buffs that you might need from, let's say, a trinket ready to go. And you can set all that up pretty easily. There's no reason that you can't. It's only tricky because the damage spikes that come from unpredictable things tend to just suck. And I need to keep Atonement on my tank. Pardon me for a moment. So there's really two parts to the problem of healing design in Legion. One is that tanks are really being built currently to be indestructible and self-sustained machines. And encounter designs are often built with unrecoverable mechanics that if somebody fucks it up, a healer's never going to be able to fix it. And that feels bad. It's not always the worst thing, but the problem that I had a lot of nights with Tomb of Sargeras, for instance, is that when that one person in your raid that fucks up a mechanic fucks up one of the critical mechanics, you just end the raid night really pissed off at that person. And that's not a healthy environment for anyone to be in, including that person who always screws up the raid mechanics. I'm not going to name names. Battle for Azeroth looks like it's going to do two things. In one way, it's going to continue the direction of Legion in a good way. In the other, it's going to make a change specifically to tank gameplay to kind of try to mitigate the effects of tanks becoming self-healing, mitigating machines. So Battle for Azeroth will maintain the healing percentages relatively. We have the changes from the item squish, so there will be changes made there. Obviously, the totals are going to be a lot smaller and easier to read. But the trade-off here is that our percentage of effective healing remains about the same. You put an Essence Font as a Mistweaver Monk onto your group, it's going to heal for the same relative amount it currently does. It's just that that relative amount under the stat squish is going to look really fucking stupid. To give you the exact example, when I played with a Mistweaver on the dungeon demo at BlizzCon, a Essence Font healed for 39 health a tick. Yes, 39. 2 digits of health. So you can kind of see the general direction they're going in, with the idea being that healers should not be able to immediately and instantly restore someone to full health. It is a much more planned and careful activity. The other component that's coming in, though, and I'm curious to see how this works on the encounter design front, is that a lot of tanks are having their self-sustain nerfed pretty drastically. Tanks that have never really been self-sustain heavy before are losing it. And in particular, what I noticed from playing with both my co-tank, who's a Blood Death Knight, and myself having tanked as a Vengeance Demon Hunter in the demo at BlizzCon, is that those two classes remain the only ones that are really strongly built around self-sustain and healing. But even Blood Death Knights really seem to have gotten hit hard, where Vengeance, if anything, actually seems to almost be buffed in that way, which is kind of interesting to me. I'm excited for that as a Vengeance Demon Hunter main, but I'm very curious to see how that'll look in Alpha into Beta, because I have a feeling that that will change at least somewhat. So it's an interesting design decision, and the interview with Automatic Jack I talked about earlier actually codifies that Blizzard intends that. This isn't a random design choice. This is actually very specifically the direction they're going in. Tanks will have less self-sustain and be a little less independent. They'll have to rely more on their healers, which means that for us as healers, you're going to have to play in a way that will account for your tank. More so than you do today. Because tanks are really like passive healing targets. You might set a beacon on them, you might put a hot on them, you might let something roll. But outside of that, you're not really actively focusing on a tank in Legion, and that's going to change in Battle for Azeroth if Blizzard has their way. The other thing that's really interesting about current healing, and that will be continuing in a Battle for Azeroth, is the current state of healing cooldowns. If you play the game at any other point in time, you know that healing cooldowns have always been ridiculously powerful things. A well-managed healing cooldown can take a group at 10% health and restore them to full. Tranquility is legendarily powerful and stuff like Priest Divine Hymn and the whatever it is revival, yeah, that Mistweaver monks have. I always forget what it's called. Is super powerful. Like, these are strong abilities. In Legion, they've been less powerful, but not necessarily in a bad way. It just feels like they're more intended to be a part of the design rather than oh shit buttons. They are still oh shit buttons, but Blizzard seems to enjoy building encounters that have more things that push you to use them, which is good. And this is something that's going to continue in a Battle for Azeroth. We're pretty much going to keep the same slate of healing cooldowns, seems to be the current thought, with the idea being that the way that they work in Legion right now is actually really satisfactory to the design team, and is something they want to see continue. And to kind of wrap up on that point, it looks like we're not really getting many major class changes in Battle for Azeroth. Taking a look at what people noticed on the demo at BlizzCon, as well as my own observations, other than the item squish, healers don't really have a whole lot of changes. We still have some question marks around how that's going to work in terms of artifact abilities being lost, and we have questions about what synergies that you're going to get from Heart of Azeroth. What kind of traits will we get? Because for the artifact weapons, I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but sometimes for healing, the artifact traits that you got felt a little underwhelming compared to some of the really cool gold traits for DPS and tanks that were out there. So I'm really curious to see if we get stronger integration with Heart of Azeroth, and if we kind of see a new sort of setup for that.
So be it.
But I do think that there's something interesting here in the healing model that we'll see in Battle for Azeroth, which is that it does take some of the stuff I like about Legion, the triage heavy model with the basic inability to top anyone off at a given time in a raid setting, and it combines it with additional management for tanks and additional synergy and synergization of healing cooldowns. I don't know if synergization is a word, but some corporate business guy just got a hard on. Sorry. So I actually kind of really like the direction this is going in. I feel like the team learned a lot of positive lessons from the Tomb of Sargeras. I don't want to say failure, but yeah, failure. And I feel like that's going to lead to better design. I hope that encounter design definitely learns a bit more, and Taurus looks pretty alright on that front, but we're going to have to see Battle for Azeroth Alpha and Beta to see how that actually holds true. Because right now, we can discuss healing changes in a vacuum really easily, but we don't know for sure how these changes are going to work until we actually get to a real dungeon. Until that gameplay actually comes out, all we can do is speculate. And for my part, my speculation is that healing in Battle for Azeroth is going to be pretty cool. I like the current healing model in Legion a lot, and I'm going to be interested to see how tank self-sustain affects healer gameplay. Because I'm so used to the tank side of that it's interesting when I play any of my healer alts to kind of take a step back and see what they see. To see a Vengeance Demon Hunter that isn't me, and to see how healing them works out. So I'm really curious to see how that plays out going forward, and the biggest piece is I'm really curious to see the encounter design side of things and to understand how that's going to actually play out, not just in theory. So anyways, that's it for this video here today. If you liked what you just watched, be sure to give me a like, comment, or subscribe here on YouTube. I also stream 6 nights a week, Monday through Saturday, over at twitch.tv/KaleRien. And lastly, if you'd like to read any of my thoughts on some of the topics I discuss in these videos, I do have a blog at kalerien.wordpress.com. Until my next video, take care, and I'll see you then.
Thank you.